Hey everybody, it's Preacher! Have you noticed? Can I ask you a question? Can I throw this out there? Have you noticed that if you do drop into a 5-man heroic on one of your alts or something like that, they're not that bad anymore? Isn't that odd? Isn't it strange? Have you even taken notice? I bet most of you haven't. Unless somebody's actually flat out AFK, they're pretty good. I mean, occasionally we get some guys who don't dispel, we get some guys who don't purge, but overall, not that bad. What the fuck? What's happened there? I bet it's just flown by you, as it had to me, as I didn't really notice at all until I went and did some other content. Having to gear up 11 characters, I ended up in normal modes. In fact, recently this week we had a little funny, where one of the most bizarre things ever happened to me is not only to witness a hunter resurrect his tanking pet 4 times during a boss fight, but then deny that it took aggro, and the tank not notice that his pet was dying and taking aggro, and then blame me as a mage for having growl on my frost alley. Yeah, and it's all going on in normal mode. It's so much more difficult. It's so much more difficult to complete a dungeon in normal mode than heroics will ever be for the future, unless something changes. And I'm interested to see if Blizzard will change this situation in the future. So what's going on? The simple fact is, honestly, I couldn't believe it until I really looked into it, is that Silver Proving Grounds are keeping a hell of a lot of people away from your PvE. A hell of a lot of people, my god. And there's an entire society of people who are living in normal mode dungeons. And that's about the limit of their able to access random content. That's about it until they get to some LFR. And if you're interested as to where those tanks go who seemingly take insurmountable amounts of damage, tanks who don't use things like shield slam. I shit you not. You might be like, oh, maybe he's not using shield block or shield barrier. No, forget that. That would be a godsend. I'm talking about people who don't use shield slam, or who tank backwards, or interrupt in any way, or do anything sort of relating to mechanics, or don't tank inside poison, things like that. If you're wondering where those guys are, they're all trapped down in normal mode, and they're actually living there. And I had a discussion with a few people on several occasions, is you can recognize that these guys are never going to be able to complete a Silver Proving Ground. Now, before you laugh your ass off, right, because they're easy as fuck. We know that. Most of us can do them in our sleep and have long forgot that normal mode even exists once you hit level 100, that there's this process of gearing up if you capped early, which most people are now. Right? You're not gaining a lot of gear from Nagrand anymore because you're capping by like Spires of Arak because you're using things like Potions of the Expanded Mind and all this kind of jazz, and therefore you're getting experience way quicker than ordinarily would. There's this whole thing going on down there. I would be very curious to see how many people are really unable to complete the Silver Proving Grounds. Because I can tell you, on most occasions, unless you're lucky enough to get with somebody's alt, and usually you can tell because they'll pop a Gammon or they'll pop a Millhouse Mana Storm, is how many of these guys just simply can't do it. Silver Proving Grounds are a cockblock, and other than that, they have to access other content. And it's clear to see because you'll find most of these guys are fully geared from normal mode. They can't possibly get anything else, yet they're still in there. And you're like, what the why would you be in here? And the only possible answer is you can't access the other random content. And whether you believe it or not, it is true that the vast majority of the player base uses LFD and LFR. They do. They're not raiders. They're using the random content provided by Blizzard that automatically matches them up with other people. And that's what they do on a regular basis. It's pretty... I was feeling kind of bad, and I was like, should I make some content to try and do this? And I was like, well, the content I already make is eventually what these guys will have to look to, or they will quit, which has not changed since ever, right? It's not changed since ever. It's always been a case of if players are really bad, they'll go one of two ways. They'll either give up, or they'll go seeking some way of getting better, and they have to find that on their own. And that's the situation I'm left with, as I leave there now. I no longer need normal modes on any of the characters. Obviously, having so many, occasionally I had to do a couple of normal modes, but that has passed now, and I can move away from it. But I know I'm leaving behind a lot of people. A hell of a lot of people are being left down there. The queues are almost as long as a heroic, but not that we could draw much from that, other than there are a lot of people in the queue. And it's interesting to see what's going on there. I wonder, how many people are trapped down there? How many people are stuck there? Is Blizzard okay with it? Probably not. I can imagine a lot of people being pissed off that they are denied access to this content for their monthly subscription. They are paying for the game. But my God, it's weird. If you're ever looking to see what this is like, pop into a normal mode every now and again. Preferably not on your main, who would probably demolish a normal mode, but just go in there and see what's happening. I've seen some crazy shit going on in there. Some absolutely bizarre stuff. And then the second, and this is the crazy thing, is it's so much more difficult to complete the content there. For instance, when you move up to a heroic, it's like, wow, the game just suddenly got easier. I say goodbye to it now, but I don't know what to say about it. Other than good luck to those guys. And if you are stuck down there, please try and do something. Or if you know somebody who is stuck in that situation and is finding it really difficult to pass by a silver proving ground, help them out a little bit, because that is not a good time. It's funny, in a way, if you're able to see exactly what's going on. If you're able to see it, yeah, it's kind of funny. But imagine what it's like that is your gameplay. And maybe if you do know somebody like that, help them out, because Blizzard has artificially blocked them from joining what is currently content. It'd be really interesting to see if in the future Blizzard's like, oh, well, you no longer need the Silver Proving Grounds achievement or whatever to get into 5-man heroics. And then they release the new 5-man heroics, which have a higher item level so that people can sort of dwell down there below. But you've been artificially protected, most of us. You really have, from the truly learning players. And yeah, a lot of people say it's boosted. I can't see it being boosted, really, to result in the situation. It's just people who have absolutely no idea what's going on at all. And that's all it can be. Is people who just have no clue. It could be boosted. It might be, but I don't think so. I think these are the players who have probably been around for a little while, actually. And they could get away with being that way and still do current content in Mists of Pandaria. They could get away with it. But we know that the subscriber base shot way the fuck up with Warlords of Draenor. And where is it now? Probably a lot lower. How many of those guys are the people who just couldn't get past this artificial barrier, which many of us have just forgotten about? Should we care? It's a difficult question. Should we care that this is going on down there? Maybe, but at some point the floodgates are going to open. And what will happen that day will be very curious. Or whether Blizzard intends to keep this sort of artificial gating of the very, very bad players, which is what they are. Let's not be crazy about this. The very, very bad players. If Blizzard intends to just keep them one gap away from everybody else, like a separation is going on right now. These guys don't get to play with you. As simple as that. They're just not allowed. They might eventually do something in terms of damage, but judging by some of their awareness in terms of giant poison clouds or lightning or the ability to do anything, it's unlikely they will interrupt the healer in silver. It's unlikely they will avoid the amber globule or work out what's going on. And I don't know, man. I feel kind of sad, but at the same time, it's kind of good. These guys will eventually either quit or they'll come to someone like me and I'll help them out. And don't get me wrong, man, I will help you the fuck out if you are stuck down there, which is probably not anybody who's listening to this. But be aware these guys are out there. Maybe they're your friends. Have you invited someone to the game and not really sure what they're doing, or they're not enjoying the game? Maybe they're stuck in this fucking nightmare. And it's a nightmare down there. It really is. I've collected a few scenes in the background. I thought some of you will be able to see exactly how crazy it is, but wow. I'm glad to say I'm out of it now. Because while it was funny for a while, it doesn't half get frustrating to see, or just to deal with it. On my healers especially, is to just heal people who just seemingly just die. And you're like, I can't heal you anymore. I just can't do it. And then get angry and frustrated and tell people to leave. I've seen it all down there. I've seen a tank stand in fire and UBRS, let me tell you. UBRS, I had a tank who was by far and away the most damage taken from the dragons at the end, breathing fire onto the platform. And who went into a blind flying rage that the DPS were nubs because they died in a fire at some point, or get out of fire, you freaking idiots. And all that is going on in there. And interestingly enough, I haven't really seen that at all in the 5-man heroics. And that's an artificial gating system that currently exists. Did you know about it? I bet you didn't. I bet most people didn't, because normal modes was something we did on day one and then, or not at all, and forgot about. But my God, these people are down there. One day they're coming out. They're coming out. Be ready. See you later, guys. Bye-bye.